Hi, I'm Richard Maraj, Senior Minister at Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center, and I want to thank you for visiting our website and for tuning in to today's message. If you feel inspired by today's talk, I really encourage you to make a donation by hitting that button below and making a contribution to this ministry. It'll allow us to continue these messages online and to do the great work we do here at Unity of Phoenix, which is to inspire people to live better lives. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for your support, and we hope to see you at a Sunday real soon.
Good morning again, everyone. And a shout out to everybody who tunes in and watches us online. So how many people, as good as your life is and has been, still know that there's something more that you are to do that you haven't done, to create that you haven't created, and to achieve that you haven't achieved? How many people know that? And how many people know that there is something that you're meant to express or experience that you've allowed fear to stop you from going after it fully or even trying it at all? Okay. And how many people know if you could start your life over again and live it up to this exact age, if you could do it all over again, how many people know you would achieve and experience more than you've done now? And I think every one of these questions points to one thing, and that is the incredible potential that lies within each and every one of us. Every one of us, without a doubt, knows that there is more love, that there is more genius, more brilliance, more talent, more creativity in us than we have allowed to come forth and be expressed in our lives and in this world. And if we're feeling like our lives aren't fulfilled or it's not as successful or happy as we want to be, it is not because we lack the potential or the capacity or the capabilities or talents. It is that we often hold back what is within us, that we're afraid to try, that we're scared to live full out and go after the life and to become the person that we are meant to be. So my question for you is, where in your life are you holding back from giving your all, from going after what you want to create, to experience, to express, and to achieve? How many people have heard of the Gospel of Thomas? So the Gospel of Thomas is an uncanonized gospel that was found in Nag Hammadi, Egypt in 1945. It was buried in response to a letter from Bishop Anathias declaring a strict canon of the Christian scripture. So that was not canonized, so it got buried, and it was discovered in 1945, a part of what they call the Nag Hammadi Library. It was a Gnostic gospel. And it is just filled with sayings of Jesus. It didn't chronicle his life like the other Gospels, but it had half of the things that he said and just a bunch of sayings about how to live life. And it really tended to focus on the potential within us, the divine nature in us that we are meant to share and express more fully. I'd like to share two of those sayings of Jesus from the Gospel of Thomas. The first one said, Jesus said, "If those who lead you say to you, 'See, the kingdom is in the sky,' then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, 'It is in the sea,' then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you and outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will realize that it is you who are the sons of the living Father. But if you will not know yourself, you will dwell in poverty, and it is you that are that poverty." And the second one that I want to focus on is this one. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. So three things are in that. Number one is that there is something in you to bring forth. There is something in you that is magnificent, that is brilliant, that is beautiful and outstanding that you are meant to bring forth. And if you bring forth and give life to that thing, it will give you life. It will save you. It will fulfill you. And third is, if you bury that thing, you will bury your joy. That if you stifle that thing, you will stifle your happiness and your spirit. The choice is up to us. It's in us. The question is, do we bring it forth or do we bury it and hide it? So my brother recommended a fabulous book to me called The War of Art. It is by the writer Stephen Pressfield, who coincidentally was born in Trinidad like I. And he shares in it the war of art, the inner struggle of a writer in bringing forth his creativity and the struggles that can go on to do the very thing that you are meant to bring forth. As he knew he was a writer, and he had been writing and writing, and after 17 years, he finally got to participate and write a screenplay for a movie called King Kong Lives. And it absolutely bombed at the box office. It was horrible, horrible. He said nobody came to the premiere except the guests that they had, and the guests and the friends were so embarrassed that when the light went on after the show, they scattered like cockroaches. They were so embarrassed. And then 10 years after the 17 years of finally actually getting paid for one, he wrote his very first novel at the age of 52, entitled The Legend of Bagger Vance, which became a movie 5 years later in 2000, starring Matt Damon and Will Smith. Interestingly, the movie was about a golfer who was looking for his authentic swing. It was a very spiritual-centered book about learning to find your authentic swing. And his book really shares about the journey of creativity, of the inner struggles that happen to bring forth what you are meant to bring forth, the mistakes that are made, the learning, the attitude that is needed to love it even when you're having a difficult time. And he says the thing is about with life, the truth is we're all artists trying to create and bring forth something. And in us, there are two lives, he said. The life we're actually living and the life in us that is unlived. The life we are living and the life that we could be living that has the potential for us to live. And he said the thing that stops us between these two lives, he said, is one word, and he said it is resistance. He said resistance is faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, and can stop dreams in a single bound. It kills creativity, stifles our happiness, and stunts the person that we are here to become. It repels, it distracts, and derails us from the life that we are meant to live. He says that resistance is the most toxic, limiting, negative force in the universe. And the interesting thing about it, two things. Number one is the resistance comes from us. The resistance is an inner activity of self-sabotage that holds us back from the life we're meant to live. And the other thing is we tend to resist things that are good for us. We tend to resist things that we want that will improve and make our lives better. Let me give you an example. We all value health, energy, and vitality. How many people have ever resisted going to the gym and working out? We all want inner peace and divine connection. How many people have ever resisted sitting down and meditating every single day? We resist things like starting our own business. We resist things like, getting more organized. We resist things about being more intimate in a relationship. We resist being more honest. We resist healing our past. It is amazing how many things we resist, and what we tend to resist are things that are good for us, things that we actually want. Everybody resists. And the most common form of resistance is our good friend, procrastination. How many people ever procrastinated at something in some way in your life? Interesting thing about procrastination. Procrastination doesn't say, I will never work out. Procrastination is tricky. It says, I am going to work out starting tomorrow. I'm going to work out right after I take a nap. I'm going to work out as soon as I get organized. I'm going to work out as soon as the weather gets a bit cooler. A son asked his father, he said, Dad, what does procrastinate mean? And the father says, I'll tell you tomorrow. Mark Twain once said, do not put off till tomorrow what you can put off till the day after tomorrow. We all procrastinate. The thing about procrastination is when it becomes a habit, when we keep procrastinating on our dream, when we keep procrastinating on doing the things we know that will bring us more health, more happiness, more success, more fulfillment in our relationships. And procrastination is, and resistance is something we do, and there's so many forms we don't even realize it. It is anything that stops us from doing the things we know that are good for us. And there are tons of things. Sometimes drugs and alcohol. Sometimes a lot of TV or gossip. Sometimes overeating or shopping. Sometimes chocolate. We can. Sometimes having a lot of drama in our lives and constant chaos stops us. Sometimes constantly getting sick or constantly second-guessing ourselves and never actually making a decision. Sometimes chronic tardiness or excuses or rationalizations or being critical or rigid. There are numerous things that take up and suck up our time and energy and stop us from doing the things that will progress our lives and move us towards the person and the life that we are meant to live and experience. Resistance is anything that stops us from using our creative energy in the most positive and fulfilling way. Think about creativity. It demands work. Being an artist demands work. Being a success takes work. It takes time and effort. He says that writing isn't the hardest part. The hardest part is sitting down to write. It's to getting yourself to get to doing the work. You've got to check the mail first or have another cup of coffee or call that friend, finish the laundry. We come up with all these excuses. So the reality is that resistance is a part of the dynamic of a creative experience, of a creative life. It is a part of it. And the good news is it doesn't have to stop us or withhold us from creating the life that we want. Resistance can be overcome. If resistance couldn't be overcome, we wouldn't have space travel. We wouldn't have the internet. We wouldn't have the iPhone. We wouldn't have Disneyland. We wouldn't have arthroscopic surgery. We wouldn't have Reese's peanut butter cups. We wouldn't have these things. Because resistance can sometimes stop us from doing and creating the things that we are meant to create. So how do we overcome resistance to bring forth our creativity to live the life that we are meant to live and to become the person we're meant to be? And the first thing he says is you got to turn pro. You need to become a pro. And he says we can't live lives like amateurs. We need to live like a professional. And it's not about the money or what we do for a living. When he says being a professional, it's about the mindset, the level of commitment and dedication, and how serious and engaged we are about living the life we are meant to live. It is about taking our game up to another level. Amateurs dabble in it as a hobby, part-time. Professionals are fully engaged, committed, and it is their full-time work, desire, and effort. The professionals are organized, they're disciplined. Professionals want to master their craft. They want to learn from others. They're willing, to study the greats. And they enjoy the journey, even when it's hard. And so whether you are meant to be a writer or a coach or to work with children or be a teacher or a counselor or architect or doctor, the fact is we need to love our craft. And we need to be a professional in how we show up and how we work our lives. Here's a wonderful scripture that emphasizes what I think he's talking about. 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. And what it's saying is if you want your life to move to another level, we need to take our game up a notch. We need to be more professional, more committed, more disciplined, and more engaged and focused on the person we want to be and the life that we truly want to live. And you can call it professionalism. You can call it the warrior's way. You can call it the artist's code. You can call it living consciously. You can call living a more awakened life, enlightenment. You can call it being spiritually mature. Whatever you want. The question is, are you ready to take your life to another level? Are you willing to be more dedicated and committed to expressing that which is in you, that which you are meant to express? Are you willing to show up in a bigger and a greater way than you're doing now? Second thing is that we need to begin to engage the magic of motion. There is magic in motion. Einstein said, nothing happens till something moves. Nothing happens till something moves. Remember, art is about work. It's about action. It says in Scripture, don't just be hearers of the words, be doers. Put it into practice. Put it into action. Somerset Maugham, who wrote one of my favorite novels of human bondage, was asked if he wrote on a schedule or if he wrote when he was struck by inspiration. And he replied with these words. He said, "I write only when inspiration strikes. Fortunately, it strikes every morning at 9 o'clock sharp." You got to put things in motion. You got to be doing the work and engaged in it. Here's what Pressfield said. Because the most important thing about art is work, nothing else matters except sitting down every day and writing. Why is it so important? Because when you sit day after day grinding, something mysterious happens. A process is set into motion by which infallibly, heaven comes to your aid. And unforeseen forces enlist in your cause, supporting you. Serendipity reinforces your purpose and brings forth help. That when you are focused on your work, you become like a magnet that draws iron, what do you call those things? Filings. That you literally begin to attract ideas. You begin to attract people. That things begin to open up because you've created a magnetic force by being fully engaged in the activity and the work. It is just a powerful and amazing thing. Nothing happens till something moves. So where in your life are you being called to take some action, to get things in motion, and to create a concentration of power that will take you deeper, to allow heaven to come to your aid, to allow wisdom and insight to bless you and to enrich you? You know, the fact of the matter is, this universe is supporting us in amazing ways, but we need to take some action. We need to create the magic of motion. So the next one after that is that we need to invoke our muse. We need to open ourselves to inspiration. You know, you remember in Greek mythology, the Muses were 9 sisters. They were daughters of Zeus. And it was their job, their purpose, to inspire artists, to help artists bring forth what's in them. And as much resistance as we think that there is towards whatever we want to do, there's 10 times more support. That the universe is conspiring for your brilliance, your greatness, and to bring forth the creativity and the magic that is in you. In the Talmud it says, every blade of grass has an angel that bends over it and whispers to it, grow, grow. And every one of us has an angel. Every one of us has a muse that says, create, create, evolve, evolve, expand, expand. Life is calling us to bring forth. There are muses, inspiration, angels supporting us, calling us to express the magnificence and the greatness in us. One of my favorite things in the entire book is when he quotes William Blake, and I'll read it to you and I'll share the wisdom behind it. He writes this. This is William Blake. Eternity is in love with the creations of time. Eternity is in love with the creations of time. Eternity is infinite intelligence. It's the source. It's God. It is a higher consciousness. It is the divine. And it's saying eternity is in love. It rejoices and celebrates and appreciates creations of time. The things that human beings bring forth. The things that human beings manifest and create and achieve. And so if the idea is that eternity celebrates the things that we manifest, bring forth, and create, would you not think that perhaps eternity is nudging us to do that? And maybe eternity and spirit actually has planted those things in us to allow us to bring forth in greater ways. Let me give you an example. Michael Jackson, Mozart, and Beethoven, every one of them said, I didn't write that music. That music just came through me as if it was already written. Could it be perhaps that the Fifth Symphony was already existing at some higher plane before Beethoven sat down and played da 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 da? And isn't it interesting that it just came through him? As if it was meant. He was meant to be the channel to bring forth that good. I don't think anyone in this room would doubt that Craig was created to write music, to create. Anybody? And the fact is, every one of us is here created to do something great. There are talents that are planted in you that are only you can give life to. There is genius and love and magnificence and greatness that only you can give life to. Perhaps all of this is already out in the ethers, waiting for us to open a channel to let it come through. That it's already in us, the genius, the brilliance, the beauty. We're not lacking in it. The question is, are we open to the inspiration of it, to tune into it and open ourselves to let it come through? Let me give you another example. You ever renovate your kitchen and come up with a plan, or you want to build a house, or you got to write a report or a talk or a presentation or a song, and then you start up with that plan, and then you come back a couple of days later and say, no, we should really move this over here and that. Oh, and in the talk, maybe I should end with that instead of open. And then somehow there is this adjusting and revising, and the product becomes even better than before. And my question, where does that come from? Where does that knowledge, where does that genius, where does that knowing of how to change it in an exact way comes? And I would suggest there is an unseen intelligence guiding us. There is the muse, there are angels leading us and guiding us to the greatest and best way possible. So my question is, are you ready to invoke your muse? To allow your angels to lead you? Are you willing to tool in, to tap in, and to open yourself to whatever it is in spirit that is meant to be channeled through you? Are you willing and ready to open yourself and tune into that? Last one I want to talk about is you got to devote your work to God and to the greater good. In the animal kingdom, you can identify yourself in two ways. They identify themselves in two ways. It's either through hierarchy or territory. A hierarchy is like the natural pecking order. And in the natural pecking order, when you identify yourself in a hierarchy, that tends to be the default of how animals identify themselves. In a hierarchy, you got to compete against other people because it's about where you rank. And you always want to elevate yourself in the order. You relate to other people based on the order. And we measure our happiness based on where we are in the hierarchy. It's competitive, and we evaluate everything on the hierarchy. Now, a territory, or your turf, or your hunting ground, is self-sufficient. It sustains. There is nothing needed outside the territory because you got everything. And the territory gives back. If you do put good work into the territory will bless you. Let me give you an odd example. Arnold Schwarzenegger's territory early in his life was the gym. It was his territory. And the reason it was his story, he put a lot of hours and work in it. It was where he was gifted, and it gave a lot back to him. Does this make sense? Hierarchy and territory. Let's jump to the Bhagavad Gita, which seemed like a logical jump. In it, Krishna says to Arjuna this word: you have the right to your labor, but you do not have the right to the fruits of your labor. And what Arjuna is saying here is, live your life and own your territory. But don't do your work as a hierarchy to compete or to get fame or money. Do it because it is what you're born to do. Don't do it for attention. Don't do it for money or ego. Do it because it is what God put you here to do. And let whatever is yours to do become a sacred act and a covenant between you and God, and do that to the glory of God for no other reason than to bring forth it, to create a better humanity and a better world. Every one of us can have a great life. It's available. And the key thing we need to do is, how do you deal with resistance? You know what the bottom line of resistance is? It's about fear. We have fears of all kinds: fear of failure, fear of abandonment, fear of being hurt, fear of disappointing each other. We can go on and on. But you know what the greatest failure is? Is that we are greater than we could ever imagine. We fear success. We fear greatness. We feel magnificence. We're afraid of those things, and yet that is what we resist the very thing that will give us life and fulfillment and bless this world and make a greater difference. Every one of us is an artist. And as an artist, it comes down to, are you willing to do the work? And you can do it or not do it. But the consequence of not doing it is we hurt ourselves. We cheat and rob ourselves of the lives that we are meant to live, to the contributions we're meant to make, and the ways that we are blessing other people around us and our world. In an artist, there's always an inner battle between resistance and creativity, between the ego and the higher self. And the fact is, if we're willing to engage and step up and become more professional in how we show up in life and handle resistance, if we're willing to engage the magic of motion and to invoke the muse and the inspiration of the divine and devote our work as a sacred act to God, we will be victorious. We will give life to something great, and we will win the war of art. God bless you all.